My name is Marianne Keller. I'm 64. And for most of my life, people have described me as reliable. The kind of woman who remembers birthdays, who never misses a bill, who keeps her promises even when no one notices. Reliability used to make me proud. That morning, it felt like a curse. The cashier's scanner beeped 3 times before she frowned. "Ma'am, your card was declined." The words landed like a slap. I blinked, certain it was a mistake. My pension account had plenty. I reached for my phone to check the balance, and that's when the notifications appeared, stacked one over another. A message from Lena. The party was last night. We only invited his family. Anyway, your card failed. Did you send the money? Beneath it, photos, a golden cake, her husband holding her waist, his mother lighting candles, my daughter's smile wide, effortless, as if I had never existed. The grocery store around me blurred into static. I could still feel the dress folded neatly in my cart pink linen, soft to the touch, chosen for a dinner that had never happened. Next to it sat a small, wrapped gift, a first edition poetry book she'd once loved as a teenager. "Would you like to try another card?" the cashier asked gently. I shook my head. My hands were steady, surprisingly so. I opened the banking app, canceled the scheduled transfer to Lena's account, and typed a message with slow precision. Some lessons cost money. Then I pressed send and slipped the phone into my purse. Outside. Charleston's air was thick with the smell of sea salt and magnolia. I walked past the line of carriages clattering down King Street, feeling the weight of the gift bag pull against my wrist. The humidity clung to my skin, but inside, something had gone cold and clear. By the time I reached my car, the first buzz of incoming messages began. Calls, texts, little explosions of panic. I didn't answer. I set the gift on the passenger seat and drove toward home, the pink dress whispering against the paper bag. I already knew this wasn't about a failed card. It was about everything I'd been paying for that wasn't love. 2 weeks before the grocery store, before the silence between us hardened into something unrecognizable, my mornings still began with purpose. I'd sit by the kitchen window, balancing my checkbook beside a half-empty cup of coffee. The same ritual I'd kept since my husband died 7 years ago. The pension he left me was comfortable, not extravagant, a cushion meant for quiet years, and maybe a few trips I never took. Somehow, that comfort had turned into Lena's lifeline. It had started innocently, a missed car payment when she and Michael were first married, then rent, student loans, a baby shower, a new stroller. Every expense had a story, a justification, a promise to pay it back when things get better. I never expected repayment. What I wanted was gratitude. A phone call, a visit that didn't end with an awkward mention of bills. The transfers became as routine as brushing my teeth. On the first of every month, I'd open the banking app and watch my balance dip. $1, $200 for rent, $300 for groceries, $150 for whatever unexpected cost Lena mentioned that week. I kept receipts in tidy envelopes, as if neatness could disguise imbalance. Sometimes, I caught myself feeling proud that I could help, that my daughter didn't have to struggle the way I once did. But that pride carried a dull ache underneath, like a splinter too deep to pull out. Each time she said, "You're the best, Mom," it felt less like affection and more like acknowledgement of a service rendered. That afternoon, as I walked along East Bay Street, the air smelled of tide water and iron. The old houses stood beautiful but crumbling, their porches warped by humidity, their paint peeling under the salt air. I loved them for that, for holding on despite the decay. But even I knew the truth. Beauty fades when you keep patching the same cracks instead of rebuilding the foundation. When I returned home, my phone buzzed with another request. "Mom, could you cover the credit card this month? Just until Friday." I typed, "Sure, sweetheart." Before I even thought about it, it was easier than saying no. The boutique on Broad Street smelled faintly of lilac and starch, the kind of place where soft lighting makes every fabric look forgiving. I stood before the mirror, smoothing the hem of a pale pink linen dress that stopped just below my knees. It wasn't extravagant, just simple and hopeful. Lena had mentioned that Michael's parents were planning something small but elegant for her birthday, and I wanted to look nice. Presentable, belonging. The saleswoman smiled as she pinned the tag. "That color suits you. You must have something special coming up." "My daughter's birthday," I said, trying not to sound as nervous as I felt. "She's finally letting me meet his side of the family properly." I almost laughed at my own phrasing, finally letting me. On the drive home, the dress lay across the passenger seat like a promise. The late afternoon sun slipped through the live oaks, dappling the fabric with gold. I called my sister, Ruth, in Savannah, her voice crackling through the static. "Lena's turning 30. I told her. They're having a dinner. She invited me this time." "That's wonderful." "Marianne," Ruth said softly, "you deserve a night of celebration." I did. Or at least I wanted to believe I did. For the next few days, I imagined it all: the candles, the laughter, maybe a toast where she'd say thank you for everything I'd done. I wrapped her gift carefully, the same poetry book she'd carried in college, until the pages curled from humidity. I wrote on the card, "For my favorite dreamer love, Mom." The night of her birthday, I sat by the window, waiting for the call that never came. Around 10, my phone lit up not with her voice, but with photos. Lena in a shimmering dress, standing between Michael's parents. The caption reading, "Family first, perfect night." I didn't cry. I just went to my closet, hung the pink dress inside, and left the tag where it was. Some things, I thought, are easier to return than others. 3 days passed after the party photos, and the silence between us stretched like a tightened wire. I didn't call. I told myself I was giving her space, but the truth was simpler. I didn't know what to say that wouldn't sound like begging. On the 4th morning, as I was watering the ferns by the kitchen window, the phone rang. Lena's name flashed across the screen. My heart lifted before my reason caught up. "Mom, the rent's due," she said, breathless. "Your transfer didn't go through." I blinked, confused. "What transfer? The one you always make the first of the month?" "I tried paying online, but it says insufficient funds." "Did something happen to your account?" Her tone wasn't worried, it was irritated, as if I'd forgotten to keep a promise carved in stone. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and sat down. "Lena, I didn't forget. I just didn't send it." A pause, then a sharp inhale. "You didn't send it, Mom. The landlord's already texting us. We could lose the apartment. I'm sure you and Michael can handle it." I said softly, "You both work." She laughed. But it wasn't humor, it was disbelief. "We're stretched thin right now. You know that." I wanted to remind her that I used to work 2 jobs so she could have braces and dance lessons, that I'd skipped vacations and new clothes so she wouldn't have to. But I said nothing. Her silence on the other end wasn't waiting for understanding. It was waiting for money. "I'll see what I can do," I murmured, though I already knew I wouldn't. After she hung up, the kitchen felt smaller, the light colder. I sat at the table where I'd once planned birthday cakes and wedding gifts and opened my old leather journal. On the first clean page, I wrote, "I raised a child who knows my PIN, but not my pain." Then I closed it and set the pen aside, listening to the distant hum of my phone vibrating again. I didn't reach for it. The next morning, I woke before sunrise, the air still heavy with the scent of last night's rain. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee growing cold, staring at my phone as another text from Lena came in. "Did you talk to the bank yet? The rent's still pending." I didn't answer. For once, I wanted to move without explaining myself. By 8, I was sitting in the quiet lobby of Carolina First Bank, the same branch where I'd opened my first savings account 30 years ago. The marble floor gleamed like it had when I used to bring Lena there as a little girl, her hand small in mine, her eyes wide at the candy bowl by the counter. She'd loved choosing the butterscotch wrappers that caught the light. I wondered if she remembered. Mr. Harlan, my banker, greeted me with that calm professionalism that always steadied me. Mrs. Keller, he said kindly. What can I do for you today? I slid the papers across his desk. Automatic transfers, joint account forms, all the ties that had quietly bound me. I'd like to cancel every recurring payment to my daughter's account, I said, my voice steadier than I expected, and close the joint savings. He looked at me for a moment before nodding. Understood. His fingers tapped the keyboard. You've been generous long enough. The words landed softly, but they echoed. Generous long enough. It wasn't judgment, it was recognition. When he handed me the confirmation papers, something inside me unlatched. I thanked him, tucked the documents into my purse, and stepped out into the bright Charleston morning. The humidity clung to my skin, but I felt strangely light, as if I'd been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. That night, the messages came in waves. Mom, what did you do? How could you cut us off without warning? Michael says you've lost it. I read them all and placed the phone face down on the nightstand. The house was still. No beeping notifications. No transfers to approve. No explanations to craft. Only quiet, and for the first time, it felt like peace. They came on a Saturday afternoon without calling first. The sound of their car doors slamming broke the stillness of my front porch. And before I could reach the door, Lena was already knocking with the impatience of someone who believed entry was owed, not asked. Mom, we just need 5 minutes, she said as she stepped inside, her husband, Michael, close behind, a leather folder tucked under his arm. He smiled too quickly. The way people do when they're about to sell you something. Lena sat at the kitchen table, her voice sweet but tight. It's nothing major. Just paperwork to help with the mortgage. The bank needs a temporary authorization in case anything happens to you, so we can handle things smoothly. I took the folder, my hands colder than the air around us. The first page looked ordinary enough. My name, her name, a few boxes for signatures. But the words beneath the heading caught my eye. Power of attorney. I looked up. This isn't temporary. Lena. She blinked, feigning confusion. What? Of course it is. It's just a formality. Michael leaned forward, his voice low. You're misunderstanding. It's standard, just a safeguard. I slid the folder back across the table. No, I don't sign things I don't understand. And I understand this perfectly. The air in the room shifted. Lena's tone cracked. Mom, why are you being so difficult? You've always trusted me. Trust, I said quietly, isn't something you print on legal paper. Michael's jaw tightened. You're confused, he said flatly. You need help. Marianne, you've been acting strange for weeks. Something sharp and cold moved through me. If protecting myself is strange, I said, then I'll stay strange. They left without another word, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the glass. When the house finally went still again, I took the folder from the table, locked it in my desk drawer, and sat down at my writing desk. On a blank page, I wrote, they mistake boundaries for illness. Then I turned off the light and listened to the night hold its breath. By Monday morning, I had decided I wouldn't wait for the next surprise at my doorstep. I called a number my banker, Mr. Harlan, had given me weeks earlier. Mr. Webb, an attorney who specialized in elder protection. His office was downtown, a narrow brick building near the waterfront, filled with the scent of old paper and lemon polish. He listened quietly as I spoke, his pen barely moving. I told him about the years of transfers, the constant demands, the folder with the hidden power of attorney. When I finished, he leaned back and said in a calm, deliberate tone, Mrs. Keller, what they're doing has a name. It's called elder financial coercion, and it's illegal. The word illegal hit harder than I expected. For years, I'd thought of myself as guilty of weakness, of love without limits, but never as someone being wronged. Mr. Webb explained that we could document everything, every payment, every transfer, every message asking for money. He had me sign a few papers, creating a legal firewall between my accounts and theirs. Before I left, he handed me a folder. "This is your proof," he said. "From now on, every dollar you give is by your choice, not their expectation." That afternoon, I drove straight to the hardware store. The young clerk asked if I needed help choosing locks. I almost laughed at the question. "Yes," I said. "Something sturdy. I'm finally investing in my doors." By sunset, the new locks clicked into place with a satisfying weight. A technician came later to install security cameras, small, silent guardians watching over the porch and garden. The house felt different that night. Not larger, but safer. As I climbed into bed, the phone on my nightstand buzzed again and again, Lena's number, then Michael's, then a string of unknown ones. I turned it face down, let it hum against the wood until it went still, and closed my eyes. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full, dense, steady, alive. For the first time in years, I slept through the night. The invitation came in a message that sounded almost tender. "Mom, can we have dinner? Just us. I want to make things right." I stared at it for a long time, weighing every word. Lena hadn't said "I'm sorry," but she had said "make things right." Maybe that was close enough, against my better judgment. I replied, "All right." One dinner. The restaurant she chose was an upscale place on King Street, all soft lighting and white tablecloths. I arrived early, as I always did, and ordered water while I waited. When they walked in, Lena smiling too wide, Michael carrying a folder I knew. "The same folder, Mom," Lena began, sitting across from me. "We just wanted a chance to explain. Things got messy, and we miss you," Michael added smoothly. "We also need to settle some things, just signatures, to make sure your affairs are handled properly." I looked at the folder resting beside the breadbasket like a guest no one wanted to acknowledge. "Your timing is impeccable," I said, voice even. "Apologies go down better with paperwork, I suppose." Lena reached for my hand. "Mom, please don't be dramatic. We're just trying to protect you." I pulled my hand back. "No, Lena, you're trying to control me." The waiter appeared to take our order. I asked for salmon and a glass of Chardonnay. They declined food, too focused on their pitch. Michael slid the papers toward me again, his voice dropping to a rehearsed gentleness. "It's really just a formality." I picked up my fork instead of the pen. "You wanted a celebration," I said, meeting both their eyes. Here it is, the night I stopped paying for love. Their faces froze, the color draining as the words landed. I finished my meal slowly, savoring each bite. When the check came, I paid for my portion, stood, and placed a 20 beside the untouched bread. As I left, I heard Lena whisper, "Mom, please don't do this." But I was already walking toward the door, feeling the Charleston air wrap around me like something earned, not given. The weeks that followed felt like walking through a long exhale. Charleston spring had begun, soft sunlight spilling through the lace curtains, azaleas blooming along the sidewalks. The city alive again after winter's hush. I spent my mornings at the kitchen window, coffee in hand, watching the light change on the harbor. For the first time in years, my days belonged entirely to me, at Ruth's insistence. I joined a neighborhood book club that met every Thursday at a small cafe near Broad Street. The women were kind, curious, and blessedly uninterested in anyone's bank balance. We read to the lighthouse first. Virginia Woolf's delicate ache between longing and freedom. I understood her better now than I ever had. On weekends, I started volunteering at the library. The smell of paper and dust felt like coming home to something quiet and honest. I shelved books, helped children find their favorites, and learned to love the rhythm of small, ordinary days. There were moments, of course, when the silence felt heavier than peace. Sometimes, at dusk, I'd reach for my phone out of habit, half expecting a message that began with "Mom, can you?" But none came. Until one morning, it did. "Mom, I'm sorry. No money talk. Just coffee." I read it twice. Then again, the words trembling somewhere between hope and fear. There was no demand, no guilt, just the faint outline of something human. I thought about all the years I'd mistaken dependency for closeness, the way I'd tried to buy my way into my daughter's affection. Maybe this was different, maybe not. I set the phone down, stared at the blooming jasmine outside my window, and felt a calm I couldn't name. Then I picked it up again and typed, "Coffee sounds nice." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning, the kind that didn't cost a cent. The morning was bright enough to make everything look new again. Charleston's park shimmered with that soft April light that always felt like forgiveness. I hadn't been there in years, not since Lena was a little girl, running between the magnolias with her pink ribbons trailing behind her. Back then, I thought love was a kind of currency. The more you gave, the more it would return. I sat on the same bench where I used to wait while she played, the one near the pond that always caught the afternoon sun. In my tote bag rested the pink dress, its fabric still smooth, the price tag still dangling like a question that had finally found its answer. I'd kept it too long, thinking maybe one day I'd wear it for a dinner, a reunion, a reason to feel proud again. But the truth was simpler. It belonged to a woman who no longer existed. I stood and walked to the water's edge. The pond rippled softly, a mirror of everything I'd survived: the disappointments, the silence, the hollow apologies. One by one, I tore the dress into strips, the fabric sighing as it gave way. I let the petals of it scatter across the surface, pale pink against the green reflection of the trees. The wind caught them and carried them toward the far end, where the light turned them silver before they sank. For a long time, I watched until there was nothing left to see. Then I sat down again and opened my journal. On a clean page, I wrote, "Some lessons cost money. Mine cost a daughter for a while, but bought me myself forever." I closed the notebook, feeling the weight of the words settle in a place that no longer hurt. As I walked home, the magnolias were in full bloom, heavy with scent and sunlight. Their petals fell around me like quiet applause. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was thinking about what I'd finally kept.